BP added more than $70 billion to the U.S. economy last year by making investments from coast to coast. Investments like acquiring America's largest biogas producer, Archaea Energy, and starting up new infrastructure in the Gulf of Mexico. It's and, not or. See what doing both means for energy nationwide at bp.com/investing in America.
The stress and crowds of holiday shopping can put a damper on your holiday spirit, and you don't always find all the perfect gifts you're looking for. The Virginia Lottery's games make easy and tremendously fun gifts for all the adults in your life, even you. Spruce up your gift-giving game this holiday season with the Virginia Lottery. The Virginia Lottery's holiday scratchers are a gift any adult will love. Treat yourself to some winter wonderment and play the lottery's holiday online instant games from anywhere in Virginia. Visit valottery.com/holiday. Please gift responsibly. Lottery games are not for minors.
Hey, it's Ryan Holiday, host of the Daily Stoic podcast. When I bought my first house in 2013, part of the way I paid for it was we would rent it out on Airbnb in Austin when there was South by Southwest or F1 or ACL. And then later, when that tiny little house became my office, I would work there. I'd do my writing during the week. Then on the weekends, we'd rent it out to people who were coming in from out of town on Airbnb. And you may be sitting on an Airbnb and not even know it. You've probably had the same experience. You stayed in an Airbnb and thought, this is doable. Maybe I could rent my place on Airbnb. And it's really that simple. You can start with a spare room or you can rent your whole place. Maybe you're traveling to see friends and family for the holidays. While you're away, your home could be an Airbnb. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out at airbnb.com/host.
Content warning, this episode contains discussion of the murder of 2 girls.
So we're in a deja vu situation. It seemed just yesterday we talked about how there was a new filing in the case that we had to talk about. And since then, there's actually been 2 new filings in the Richard Allen case that are worth discussing. And we are going to discuss them today.
My name is Anya Kane. I'm a journalist.
And I'm Kevin Greenlee. I'm an attorney.
And this is The Murder Sheet.
We're a true crime podcast focused on original reporting, interviews, and deep dives into murder cases. We're The Murder Sheet.
And this is the Delphi murders, motion for discovery deadline, and defendant's additional Frank's notice. First up, let's discuss this motion for discovery deadline, which was filed yesterday on October 2nd, 2023, and gets into what the defense sort of wants going forward as far as some sort of discovery schedule.
Yes, and discovery, of course, is the process by which law enforcement turns over to defense counsel matters they've investigated in terms of the case. Not just stuff they've investigated in terms of Richard Allen, but in theory, everything that's come up throughout the course of the investigation, including other suspects.
Discovery is incredibly important, and it is a one-sided street for the most part. You have prosecution having to turn over everything, law enforcement having to turn over everything to the defense. We've talked about that on the show in the past, but essentially prosecution and law enforcement have the whole resources of the state and awesome powers to throw people in jail and ruin their lives. So it's important that defense gets everything they have so that they can put together the best defense they can. We've gotten the sense, just from reading between the lines, that both prosecution and defense have been swamped with the discovery in this case. This was a case that went unsolved for 5 years before Allen's arrest. And so a lot accumulated. There were a lot of leads. There were a lot of angles that were looked into. All of that has to go over. The defense in their Franks memorandum recently even noted that like they thought they were missing some stuff, but it may have been that they just haven't found it yet. Meanwhile, they're two guys, prosecution, Nick McClellan, that's a very small office in Carroll County. So everyone's got a lot of stuff to deal with right now.
Now, before we get into the meat of this discovery deadline motion, I want to stress that both of the filings we're going to be discussing today do come from the defense. And so that obviously means they represent the defense's perspective. This is how the defense sees things. And so we're going to be discussing and trying to elucidate what their perspective is, but we should keep in mind that we do not at this time know what the prosecution's perspective on any of this is.
That's very true. And we are tend to withhold judgment until we hear from both sides, maybe for a couple of rounds to really assess everything. Because it's a situation where like Kevin and I were a couple. If we were fighting and we went and I said, Kevin said something very rude and Kevin was saying, well, I was just trying to be honest and I wasn't attacking you. You're not really going to get a straight answer from either one of us. Ultimately, it's up to maybe our couples therapist to come in and say, hey, Kevin was just saying something. Anya, you were a little bit sensitive about that. And, you seem to be itching for a fight. So maybe you're not being reasonable on that. You need the third party. You need the judge.
And to be 100% clear, we don't have a couples therapist.
No, we love each other very much. I'm just trying to do a stupid example because I think a lot of people tend to say, well, why would the prosecution say that? Or why would the defense say that if it wasn't 100% true? And they're both going to be looking at the same events and trying to craft a narrative that is good for them, both sides. It's naive to think otherwise. So I think that's just important to remember. Yeah, we don't have a couples therapist. Our couples therapist is our dog, Lanny, right?
Yes.
She's also the executive producer of the show.
So Anya was talking a minute ago about how both sides may be seen as drowning in discovery. So let's talk a little bit about what that might mean. In this motion for discovery deadline, the defense actually lists what they've received and when they've received it. They divide this into two different periods. One period is before they did depositions, and one period is after they did depositions. And from their point of view, the deposition dividing line is crucial because it was in those depositions basically that they started asking law enforcement people about Odinism and such, and so started revealing some of what their theories of the case were. So I want to say that prior to the first rounds of depositions, they received discovery materials on December 7th, 2022, December 21st, 2022, December 21st, 2022 again, February 13th, 2023, April 20th, 2023, May 23rd, 2023, again, May 23rd, 2023, and June 27th, 2023. And the totals of what they received from all of those discovery things was 16 hard drives, 4 flash drives, and 1 disk. We all know how much material you can put on a hard drive, so 16 of those.
That's a lot.
That's an incredible amount of material.
They say that post-depositions, or after the first round, they received one September 8th, 2023, one September 18th, 2023, one September 21st, 2023, and one quite recently, September 27th, 2023, for a total of 14 hard drives, 5 flash drives, and 3 disks.
So basically, in the month of September, they got almost the same amount of discovery as they had gotten the previous 7 months. This is, again, an awful lot of discovery material to go through.
TLDR, this thing isn't happening in January. I'm just calling it now.
You mean the trial?
Yeah. I've been skeptical. You've been less skeptical. I tend to think you're right about legal affairs oftentimes because behind the scenes, we'll talk about cases we're not covering on the show. And Kevin is always right. It's terrifying. There's been stuff I'm like, no way. And then boom. So, but this is a situation where I did disagree with you. And I felt like January wasn't going to happen. And I feel like this filing from the defense is kind of indicating they're like, yeah, it's not super realistic. We have a lot of stuff to go over.
The defense notes that the state indicates that some of the materials handed over in September may actually duplicate some previously handed over materials.
I wonder, is that a situation where that's the state, they're asked by defense to, hey, give us another, where's this thing? And they're like, well, we already gave it to you, but we'll give it to you again. Or is that a situation where it's just hard to organize? I don't know. One question I would have is, when do discovery issues start becoming discovery issues? When does it go from just being like, this is a lot for us all to get through, versus the judge is going to get mad at the prosecutor and there's going to be issues?
Yeah, that's an excellent question.
I have no idea where that line is. And I would be very eager to hear from defense attorneys and prosecutors who listen to this, just so you can elucidate us, because that's always one thing that sticks out, is that discovery issues can completely wreck a case. If it turns out that the prosecutor didn't get something important and something exculpatory to the defense, that's really bad. That's like red alert bad. I'm certainly not saying that's happening here or it's not happening here. I'm not weighing in on that whatsoever. It's just that what point in the process does it start becoming an issue? At what point is it just like, okay, we're going to get you stuff? And how do you prove them? If it's a situation where like the prosecution has sent it, but the defense can't find it, I'm imagining that that's not going to be a problem for the prosecutor, but how do you prove it?
Yeah, these are all excellent questions. And I think the defense basically in this motion could be suggesting that we are fast approaching a time when discovery issues may become serious, because they're basically saying that they're not getting discovery materials consistently, all at once. They're saying there's like a drip, drip, drip.
Right.
And they're saying that is impacting their ability to conduct a defense.
Right. And so they want some formal structures in place so that they can, essentially, it sounds like, have something to, say, okay, here's the deadline.
I'm just going to quickly read just a single line from this. The defense anticipates conducting at least 30 to 40 additional depositions between now and the trial date, but has been reluctant to set additional depositions until it is confident it has received all of the discovery, and also until it has had a chance to review the vast amounts of newly discovered evidence received on and after September 8th, 2023. This goes back to what you were saying a minute ago about a trial date in January. If they have another 14 hard drives to go through, and then after that they have 30 to 40 depositions to conduct, it's difficult to imagine how all of that work can be completed before a January 8th, 2024 trial date.
Yeah. No, yeah. Geez. That just does not seem like it's going to happen. I imagine from Judge Frank Gull's perspective, she's not going to want to rush this. The defense needs to have enough time to do what they need to do to put on a defense.
Yes, that's very crucial.
And so we'll be curious to see what happens, and also how prosecutor Nick McClelland responds to this. If he's saying his side of the story, what does that look like too?
Why don't we start out by discussing some of the evidence that they feel they've just gotten very, very recently that perhaps should have been turned over sooner, and then we can discuss what this might suggest about what is happening in terms of the investigation.
That sounds great. Some of the recent discovery that the state of Indiana has provided is directly related to the Odinism aspects of the case, but was only turned over to defense after the state of Indiana was aware that the defense was cognizant of the Odinism aspects of the case. The missing Odinite evidence that was finally turned over by the state of Indiana following the first round of depositions includes, but is not limited to, A, multiple interviews of Elvis Fields, which the defense has reviewed and contains exculpatory evidence that supports the defense theory of Richard's innocence. B, multiple interviews of Johnny Messer, which the defense has reviewed and contains exculpatory evidence that supports the defense theory of Richard's innocence. C, an interview of Rod Abrams, which the defense has reviewed and contains exculpatory evidence that supports the defense theory of Richard's innocence. D, a letter from former Rushville investigator Todd Click, which is exculpatory in nature, in that it provides the name of an investigator who believes evidence strongly supports that certain suspects in Delphi, Logansport, and Rushville committed the murders. This is a letter that the state of Indiana has had in its possession since May 1st, 2023, but only turned over to the defense once the state of Indiana knew that it was only a matter of time before the defense would learn of his existence. E. A report, roughly 85 pages in length, that has been reviewed and contains exculpatory evidence that supports the defense theory of Richard's innocence. F. Several search warrants signed by judges in Marion County pertaining to certain internet and phone records, including at least one unknown person who admitted to killing the girls, even providing details unknown to the general public of the crime scene, such as the fact that he used a knife in a way consistent with the manner of death, and also claiming that he used a gun but never fired it. I'm really curious about that Marion County stuff. Marion County, for those who are not in Indiana, is the county that contains Indianapolis. So it's the south of Delphi, and yeah, that would be interesting. One thing I will say is that people have been speculating about a knife for years, and I think I've heard about just about every version of, weaponry or having a gun to control the girls. That doesn't really move me that much unless it gets a little bit more specific, but it's interesting.
It's interesting. So that's certainly an interesting list of material. And what they're saying about that particular list is that is stuff which they've had in their possession for a while. Now, what's interesting is the next list, which refers to newer materials.
In addition to the vast amounts of newly discovered evidence that has been in the hands of law enforcement and the prosecutor's office for over 10 months since the defense entered their appearances, the defense has also reviewed certain new evidence that was only recently produced, including A. A new audio file in which Brad Holder was interviewed by state police in August 2023. B. A new audio file in which Patrick Westfall was interviewed in August 2023. C. A new audio file of Nick Westfall, who was interviewed in August 2023. D. A new audio file in which Jeffrey Turco was interviewed on September 9th, 2023. This is believed to be the mystery Purdue professor described in the Franks Memorandum. The state of Indiana was apparently aware of his existence since September 9th, 2023, but did not inform the defense of his existence until the defense found his name in a September 27th, 2023 evidence dump.
If it's okay with you, why don't we delay talking about Jeffrey Turco because there's more to come.
There's another filing about him.
But there's a few things that are interesting here to me. First of all, there's always been so much secrecy in this case. And what we're seeing here is pretty close to a real-time look at what's going on in the investigation, because we're hearing about interviews that were conducted just a week or two ago.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really peels back the curtain on what's currently going on, which is, yeah, we're not used to because we're so used to this case being just kind of, you have to really dig at it.
This isn't a matter of the case being reopened to look at these allegations because the case has never been closed. We all remember during the press conference last year where Doug Carter and Nick McClelland were discussing the arrest of Richard Allen. They said, well, we think there might be other people involved, so the investigation is ongoing. So the investigation continues to be ongoing, looking at some of these Odinism leads.
Yeah. And what do you make of that? Is that, I mean, is that normal for when the prosecution is informed, seemingly by defense at these depositions, is what I'm reading here? That, hey, we're looking into the Odinism thing, that's going to be our thing. Is that normal for the law enforcement and prosecution to kind of look back with those people who are at the center of that theory and sort of see if they miss anything?
I think that's like due diligence. I would imagine that once you find out that the defense is going to pursue a certain angle during the trial, you might want to say,
well, let's look at that again.
Let's figure out what evidence they have. Let's figure out if that evidence is good. Let's figure out if that evidence is not good. If it's not good, we can present that.
So this isn't really shocking information that they're doubling back and looking at it.
I don't think so.
I don't find it shocking either. I find it
good practice.
Yeah, I would want them. I mean, I would want them to do that because, you know, if there's something where the defense is saying this is going to be our big thing, if you miss something and there's something there, you have to look into it.
So then the defense goes on. Basically, the entire point of this is they want to set a deadline. They want to have a date by which they definitely have all the discovery materials that they are entitled to. They propose that date be November 1st. One thing after that, they also note that there are certain things that they feel should be part of discovery that they have not yet received.
However, to the best of Defendant Allen's knowledge, he still has not received the following discovery that has been requested upon this date and are particularly important as they may very well contain exculpatory evidence that will support the defense theories of who actually murdered the girls. A. Brad Holder audio/videotaped interview from February 17th, 2017, conducted by S.A. Adam Pohl and Hammond police officer Christopher Guti. The body of the report concerning the interview states the following. The below is an interview summary. It is not intended to be a verbatim account and does not memorialize all statements made during the interview. Communications by the parties in the interview room were electronically recorded. The recording captures the actual words spoken. Emphasis added. The defense requests the recording so that it can utilize all actual words spoken by Brad Holder at his interview. B. Additionally, in his August 23rd interview, Holder discusses a second interview with law enforcement that took place years ago. The defense requests all reports and recordings of that interview. C. Patrick Westphal was interviewed on February 19th, 2017 by the same law enforcement officers that interviewed Brad Holder 2 days earlier. The defense has not been provided with any electronic recording of that interview. D. A report believed to be authored by Purdue professor Jeffrey Turco. Defense has not found this report in any of the newest discovery. E. Police reports related to Mary Jacobs reporting her brother's confession in person in Carroll County sometime in February or March 2017. That is an accounting of what the defense says that they still need from prosecution. They're claiming it has not been handed over yet.
Or to be even more accurate, they say to the best of their knowledge, it has not. Because, again, they're looking at what a total of like 30 hard drives and all these. Yeah,
if I was missing something important and I had that much to look through, I might ask for it again too.
Yeah.
Because I would not want to deal with, I mean, that is just an absolute intense. And that's why we're being careful and hedging what we're saying, because I really feel like I understand both sides with this, and it's very possible that there are not discovery issues, that everything has been provided, but it's hard for the defense to find, and they want to drill down on the things that they feel like are going to be the most helpful for the defense. And so it's all very interesting, and I suppose we'll wait to hear what Nick McClellan says and how this all goes down. But
and again, they're requesting a November 1st deadline to get all of the discovery, but they indicate there may be exceptions to that.
And that would be ongoing investigations.
Defendant Allen understands there will likely exist additional discovery in the form of audio and video surrounding defendant's detention circumstances, which will continue to be requested and presumably disclosed and such, and ongoing investigation. So those things would be reasonably turned over
as they
November
occur.
1st.
Yeah, as they occur. That makes sense.
If for some reason they interview somebody in December, obviously they can't take a time machine and give that back to the defense prior to November 1st. And so the defense is recognizing that.
Yeah, there you go. So is that pretty much the extent of this filing?
Yes.
Okay.
At the Murder Sheet, we spend so much time digging into crime stories that sometimes it's difficult to find the time to plan out and cook elaborate, nutritious meals. That's why we are so excited about our sponsor, Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Our sponsors make this podcast possible. So if you go to factormeals.com/imsheet and use our special code imsheet, you're not just getting half off this high-quality meal plan. You're supporting us too.
So I'm obsessed with Factor. I had their creamed corn chicken and their tomato basil chicken risotto recently. Both were delicious. That risotto in particular was amazing. Plus, the whole process was a breeze. All I had to do was pop the meal into the microwave. The food was tasty and flavorful, which is no surprise given that each recipe is specifically crafted by chefs and approved by dietitians.
Having Factor during the hectic holiday season has been a boon. especially with us pumping out so many episodes. Head to factormeals.com/msheet and use code MSHEET to get 50% off. That's code MSHEET at factormeals.com/msheet to get 50% off.
Have you heard? You can listen to your gripping investigations ad-free. Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/truecrime ad-free. That's amazon.com/truecrime ad-free. And catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Imagine all your audio entertainment available in just one place. That's what the Audible app is all about. With Audible, you can always find the best of what you love or discover something new. Audible has an incredible selection of mystery and thriller titles and originals, like Something Ain't Right by Roger Stringer and Zachary Stringer, The Space Within by Greg O'Connor and Josh Fagan, and the Audible original Moriarty. Membership includes access to Audible originals, podcasts, and tons of audiobooks that you can download or stream as much as you want. And as an Audible member, you can choose one title per month from an ever-growing catalog of titles to keep. The Audible app makes it easy to listen anytime, anywhere. Whether you're traveling, working out, doing chores, wherever your day takes you. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/thrill or text thrill to 500-500. That's audible.com/thrill or text thrill to 500-500 to try Audible free for 30 days.
So earlier this afternoon, and we're recording on October 3rd, 2023, early this afternoon, the defendants filed an additional Franks notice.
Yes.
And this Franks notice focuses pretty squarely on Professor Turco.
This poor professor, can I just say, he's studying, I guess, Norse myth, Norse culture, history, whatnot. And then, you're just studying something, somewhat esoteric, and suddenly you're thrust into the middle of a huge murder case just because you happen to have that knowledge and happen to talk to police years ago about it. So, I'm not trying to be silly or make light of it, but God.
I'm going to go through this. This was filed very recently. Since filing the motion, the defense has received new discovery that strongly supports the defense's belief that Tony Liggett and Unified Command attempted to conceal from Judge Diener, and has since even attempted to hide from the defense, that evidence supports that those practicing Odinism were the murderers of Abby and Libby. Specifically, Tony Liggett swore under oath at his August 8, 2023 deposition that a Purdue professor did not believe that the sticks found on Abby and Libby's bodies consisted of runes. Furthermore, Sergeant Jerry Holman swore under oath at his August 10, 2023 deposition that a Purdue professor said that the sticks found on the girls did not represent Odinism or any type of cult worshipping or any type of a group that would have conducted the crime. Because of the findings of this Purdue professor, the Unified Command claimed to have essentially abandoned the Odinism aspect of the investigation into the murders of Abby and Libby. In response to the defense request to depose this Purdue professor, on September 6, 2023, the prosecutor, Nick McClelland, told the defense via email, "As I stated before, we are trying to identify the Purdue professor, but no luck yet. Detective Holman has reached out to FBI and Purdue and has not gotten a response yet. We will continue our endeavors, but may not be able to identify him or her." So this is basically just covering the attempts to identify the so-called mystery Purdue professor, who we now know to be Professor Jeffrey Turco. After law enforcement found out who he was, they took a statement from him, and the defense characterizes the contents of that statement in a way that doesn't seem to line up with how law enforcement originally characterized it.
Why would Holman and the Unified Command try to hide the name of the Purdue professor, even risking ridicule for the absurdity that they could not remember his name? The answer is obvious once the tape statement was played. A, Dr. Turco stated that after viewing the pattern of the sticks on the girls that it was a given that someone was trying to replicate a Germanic runic script. B, furthermore, Dr. Turco consulted with a colleague from Harvard who had even more knowledge on runes, and this Harvard professor was in agreement with Turco. C, furthermore, Dr. Turco stated that Odinism is an extreme neo-pagan, neo-heathenism ideology that has right-wing racist connotations. D, furthermore, Dr. Turco stated that according to 19th century sources, that Vikings practiced ritual killings and sacrifices. E, furthermore, Dr. Turco stated that although he could not necessarily interpret these runes, the stick configurations were pretty clearly runic, and that he could certainly imagine that this was somebody's idea, that when you do human sacrifice, you carve runes. There are some poetic sources that would sort of support that idea that somebody might have come across. That scenario seems entirely plausible to me. Turco tape statement, 15 minutes to 15 minutes and 50 seconds. F, furthermore, Dr. Turco discussed how runes were thought to have magical significance and would be used in incantations and rituals, and that there is a sacrificial connection in mythological poetry. These were things, again, where somebody who was some sort of Odin fanboy would likely come across. Turco tape statement, 14 minutes and 40 seconds to 15 minutes. Okay, so they're saying that Dr. Turco had more of an interest in the rune religious sacrifice connection. What I'm hearing him say in those quotes, not reading the defense's interpretation, but in those quotes, is he seems to be going more in the direction of Odin fanboy, not a master Odinist who knows everything about runes, because he's not able to read the runes. He's not able to really say that these are specific runes, but he's saying maybe somebody tried and failed at that. Which lines more with Todd Click's assessment, which was that it's not a sacrifice. It's the same people involved, but it's not very ritualistic. He's saying there's some ritualistic elements. I'm getting the sense of like shoddiness, like slipshod.
On the part of the people.
The murderers,
right.
As far as both of these men are sort of speaking around. That's not exactly what the defense is, obviously, because this is their side of it, saying like, he totally confirmed what we said. But I'm hearing that to an extent, and I'm also hearing, I'm hearing a little bit more in the Todd Click vein, so I just wanted to state that. Right. That's my interpretation, obviously. My opinions are not necessarily right. I'm just noting that.
Yes, it's interesting at the very least. It also seems to what they say he says, and they cite the moments in the recording where he's supposed to have said this, does not really fit with how what he said was characterized in the depositions.
Yeah, that's what the defense is claiming.
Yes.
So I guess we'll have to see what happens.
I would also be interested in, the defense is basing this on Turco's most recent statement. I would be interested to see what Turco said when he was originally talking with law enforcement. And of course, I'm sure the defense would like to see that too. And they've indicated that as far as they know, they haven't gotten that report.
Yeah. So going back to the beginning, seeing what was said then, what's said now. I think it's a situation where people can forget things or say, oh, I thought he said yes, but he actually said no. 5 years on, if that's not a situation that people were working on a lot, if it was more of designated to the sort of Todd Click, Kevin Murphy, Greg Ferenczi group, at the same time, then you can also understand why defense wants to have that sorted out in some sort of Frank's hearing.
Yeah.
And I will be curious to see, I mean, one thing that kind of stands out, I know this is stupid, but like Dr. Turco stating that according to 19th century sources that Vikings practiced ritual killings and sacrifices. 19th century sources say a lot of things that are not true. So I think what they're saying here, and again, goes back to what I'm saying about the click angle, is that you can, if you're reading about Odinism on Google Books and all like the free previews are for like books from the 1800s, you could get the impression that Vikings are doing sacrifice. Maybe to an unsophisticated mind, that means you want to adopt that because you want to be a cool Viking too and murder people. And it's kind of getting into more of a getting into more of like this is not a very intricate or good plan. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's like people who are committing the sacrifice are like not necessarily doing it in a very like educated or smart way. It's like they want to murder someone, and this is a pretext almost.
Yeah. It's also interesting to me because you're speculating that perhaps, assuming for the sake of argument that the murder was committed by people associated with Odinism, maybe they were just fanboys out on a lark as opposed to people very serious with the religion. But if they're fanboys out on a lark, they did a pretty good job of concealing evidence and not getting caught for 5 or 6 years.
That's the problem. When you're having like your cake and eating it too, that's the problem. If everything's just a sloppy mess, then, well, that's surprising that nobody left any DNA. And if everything is very intricate, then why would they why wouldn't they be able to fashion actual runes from the branches? Yeah. So it raises questions. It raises intriguing questions. It raises some interesting possibilities. And I think we're just going to have to wait to hear more over time and kind of see how this defense actually fleshes it out, whether they end up kind of going with the more, I felt the Franks memorandum got more into the kind of like, this is a grand conspiracy involving prison guards, and it's very intricate, and these people are committed Odinists who know their stuff and are doing all of this on purpose to leave symbols and whatnot. And then what we're seeing with this, what the professor's saying, and sort of what Todd Click told us, is that maybe there's another version of this that de-emphasizes their knowledge and abilities and makes it more into a, these are not very bright guys and things got out of control. To paraphrase all the president's men.
So this is how things look from the defense point of view. Interested in hearing what the prosecution has to say. The discovery issues in particular, I think, need to be addressed because that's incredibly serious. It goes down to right of counsel.
Agreed. Thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much for listening to The Murder Sheet. If you have a tip concerning one of the cases we cover, please email us at murdersheet@gmail.com. If you have actionable information about an unsolved crime, please report it to the appropriate authorities.
If you're interested in joining our Patreon, that's available at www.patreon.com/murdersheet. If you want to tip us a bit of money for records requests, you can do so at www.buymeacoffee.com/murdersheet. We very much appreciate any support.
Special thanks to Kevin Tyler Greenlee, who composed the music for The Murder Sheet, and who you can find on the web at kevintg.com.
If you're looking to talk with other listeners about a case we've covered, you can join the Murder Sheet discussion group on Facebook. We mostly focus our time on research and reporting, so we're not on social media much. We do try to check our email account, but we ask for patience as we often receive a lot of messages. Thanks again for listening.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.